Well, hi, Francis. It's great to have you here with us today to share your thoughts about joy. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so great to be here again with you.
Well, I love that we're having this sort of sit down, honest conversation, especially as we're talking about joy in our Advent series. And so, honestly, has it been a struggle for you to be joyful, joy filled this year? I mean, there's some obvious things, but I want to hear from you.
Yes. Okay. So this year started like any other. And then within a couple of months, everything spiraled out of control. I was on the edge of burnout for the first time ever after launching Envision 5 years ago. A ton of travel, coordinating and leading events. I was also dealing with some unresolved grief from the passing of my mom 3 years ago.
Mm.
Then we were confronted with a family crisis that felt like a bomb had gone off, which led to some serious marital conflict where I didn't know if we were going to make it.
Wow.
And then eventually a total breakdown and loss of all control. And this is all prior to the pandemic in March and before the racial reckoning that also rocked our lives. So yeah,
Okay, so
it's been
you
pretty.
you get then how we need joy more than ever this year. And not
Oh,
even just this year, but in our lives, infused in our lives. Have
yes.
you how have you found joy in the midst of that? I mean, that's some big things. You just talked about,
Yeah.
marital strife, burnout, grief. Those are big things that I know a lot of people can relate to. But how have you found joy and lived out joy even through these very difficult things that you're working through?
So when COVID-19 actually became a full reality, it just put a stop to all things. So all my travel, all events, the kids' school got canceled, obviously, and it just really slowed my entire orbit of life right down.
Mm.
And that space that got created lended itself to really good conversations. I'm talking conversations that wouldn't have otherwise been had with my husband in every room of our home, with my team, and just navigating what they were going through as well. Like we've gone through so much difficulty in trying to understand with clarity, like what is it that we're actually doing in this season. And
Mhm.
so I have done more apologizing than I ever have with my team in an effort to move forward. But also, more importantly, it's knowing who to surround myself with. I became like laser like focused with how am I going to deal with all the things that I'm dealing with that's emerging right now with intentionality in health and in a God centered way.
Mm.
So that meant for me reaching out to a psychotherapist who's navigating some of these things together with me, meeting regularly with a spiritual director, and just surrounding myself with some intentional friendships who aren't afraid to ask the question of how are you really and hold a mirror to my face when I need to.
Those are
Um,
great, great tips. Those are great, great tools for anybody to say,
yes,
joy is not just about like, I just need joy. There's actually work to be done to kind of change your mindset and not get stuck in those tough situations. Uh,
absolutely.
yeah, Francis, your monthly segments here on See Here Love are about cultural agility, identity, and leadership within a second generation, intergenerational context. What's your wisdom and advice ensuring joy is lived out in these areas? We don't have a lot of time, but just how would you kind of say how it should joy be lived out in these places?
Okay, so I come from a context where out of the 11 years that I've been married with my husband, almost 8 years of those have been together living with my family, with my parents, and at one point, even my grandmother. So there was 4 generations living in one home. And so as I'm addressing those who are listening who might come from a second generation, third generation, intercultural context, I think for me, the one lesson that I've learned through the many moments of hardship, and at one point even choosing to move out of my parents' home for a year is this. Experiencing joy in relationship is impossible without honor first.
Hmm.
So, as we know, coming from an honor shame culture, to honor your parents, to honor your elders, to honor people in authority, it comes with the territory. It's like the air that we breathe. But with every passing generation, I do feel like there is a growing sense of mutuality, of one anothering, where we're actually putting ourselves in a posture of listening and understanding. And I think that will honestly be the key to experiencing more moments of joy that accumulate to build those relationships around us.
That's beautiful. Honor. We don't use that word a lot, but that's a good reminder, Francis. And finally, your encouragement to those who are in deep lament, sadness, and joy is the furthest thing from their mind this Christmas season. Your encouragement to them today, Francis.
I know that this Christmas season is unlike anything we've ever experienced, or possibly may never go through in quite the same way. And so, my first encouragement is to be kind to yourself, to allow yourself the space and the time to go through the range of emotions, cycling through them again and again, because they're connected to our present reality. But then, more importantly than that, I want to just remind you that joy is not a feeling or a temporary emotion. Joy is found in the embodied person of Jesus Christ. So we can hold fast to the hope of the one who was born into this world, who understands everything that you're going through, even to die for you and me, and be resurrected in the power and the promise, pointing to an eternally joyful future that we can anticipate and orient our present lives around.
Wow. Francis, thank you so much for the encouragement of joy in
Thank
your
you.
context. Merry Christmas to you and your family this season.
You
I hope you
too.
have a wonderful Christmas. And now let's head on over to co-host and worship leader Brooke Nichols and Steve while they celebrate Christmas in their home and share a special song and story of joy.